Hello, hello, hello everybody, and welcome along to round 12 of the Apex Online Racing Hype Energy F3 League. Last weekend we got our first glimpse at our almost entirely new field of drivers at the German Grand Prix, and now we're travelling southeast to Budapest for the Hungarian Grand Prix. Always a tough circuit, the Hungaroring is notorious for its tight and twisty sections and the difficulty it poses to those attempting to overtake their rivals. I'm Jacob Hancox, and for a limited time only I have Thompson joining me in the commentary box. How are you feeling about this race, Thompson?
Good evening, Alada. I think it's going to be a very interesting race. At the moment, it looks like we have interesting conditions because it's very overcast at the moment. So a lot of drivers actually fleeing the pits, basically. So we might get some rain at the end of the session. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it definitely is a possibility. And I think we're looking ahead of an interesting rest of the season with this new combined field, and it seems like they're going to be very competitive. So it's going to be interesting to see who can put themselves at the top of the podium tonight.
Indeed, indeed. So dry conditions at the moment, but as you said, it's looking rather dark out there at the Hungaroring at the moment. I believe Race Monster was the very first driver out of the pits, and last time Race Monster was the driver who clinched pole in the German Grand Prix at the Hockenheim Ring, but it all went wrong for him going into the race and he was not able to end up with a points finish. In fact, he DNF'd from the race entirely. So he'll definitely be hoping that he can improve on that one. As usual, we're seeing a lot of the drivers coming out on the hard tyres for the start of the qualifying session, just getting their eye in because they have enough time to set as many laps as they want to do on the soft and or medium tyres, depending on whichever they prefer.
Yeah, and those tire compounds are gonna have me correct my my sentence from just a few minutes ago. It's probably not gonna rain if the guys are doing warm-up laps on harder compounds.
Good point. Very good.
That would be a very bad strategy. Race Monster just started his first flying lap. That was a yellow flag in sector 1, but I think that was just someone slowing down to let him go past. So we're going to see what his first benchmark is going to be. Obviously just a banker lap. I'm just having a look. There's no one out yet who is on a softer compound. Actually, Andinator just went out on mediums, but no soft runners. So.
Whenever Andinator's done with that. Oh no, Race Monster, he's spun completely on the exit of turn 5 there. I was just about to say, I'll get off board of Race Monster in a moment once Andinator goes around, starts going on his lap, I mean. But now that Race Monster's completely spun around on the exit of turn 5, which is a notoriously tough section, tough traction zone there, and he has absolutely fallen prey to it. He'll be very thankful that he is on the hard tyres though, so he hasn't compromised any of his useful tyre sets in this qualifying session, but that will have been a bit of a scary moment there for him. But he did keep it out of the wall, so no harm done in the end.
Yeah, it's a difficult corner, that one. You want to kind of get the car rotated fairly early so you can get onto the power as early as you can. But especially, it's pretty cool conditions now, and he was on hard compound tyres, and when you get too far outside onto the curb, you just lose grip and it spins you to the inside, and that's what happened to Race Monster there. Meanwhile, we have a first benchmark of a 117.6. That is on the hard compound tyres though, so have to wait and see until the drivers come out onto two softs. I think that's Shedek right there. He's the first driver on an out lap now on soft tyres, so we'll see what he can do with that compound.
Yeah, Ripson retiring from the session there. I'm not entirely sure if he had a qualifying ban or something like that, but that's all I can assume. That can be the only reason I can think of that he wouldn't have been participating in this qualifying session. I don't think he'd left the pits before he retired from the session either, so a bit of a curious one. Currently on board with Andinator on those medium tyres. He's been looking okay throughout this lap so far. He'll definitely be hoping that he can at least put himself above Bolash Kevin's lap time and certainly improve on his grid position of 20th and last, I believe he started in the last race. He had a very good recovery drive to end up in 6th position in the race itself, but he will definitely be hoping to get a better head start in this race with a much higher grid position. Bolash Kevin, as was the case last time out, setting the pace early on in the qualifying session. It's on the hard tyres, of course, so we can't read too much into these times, and Andinator goes and blows him away by a second there. Very clean lap from the German driver in the Williams on those medium tyres. But Bolash Kevin, we saw him dominating on every step of tyres that the cars went on. Every time they came out on a new set of tyres, it was always Bolash Kevin that was the pace setter and the guy to beat. And in the end, it was Camille who took it away from him at the very last second. And we saw a ding-dong battle between them throughout the rest of the race after that point. Or I should say, Race Monster took the pole, but of the guys who qualified on the medium tyres, it was Camille who was able to move himself up ahead of the Hungarian in the racing point. But yeah, so Bolash Kevin definitely the man to beat, especially considering he has won both of his F3 races he has started so far this season.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I was just about to have a look at Shelik starting his flying lap, because he went out on the soft tyres, but he came back into the pits at the end of his out lap, so I don't know what happened there. Well, maybe he, I don't know, wasn't happy with tyre temps or something, so at the moment he's back into the pits.
Yeah, very curious from Shelik. Camille and Kruzix have both moved themselves up ahead of Bolash, by the way, so good stuff once again from Camille early on in this qualifying session, and definitely an improvement from Kruzix, who started 19th on the grid last time around. The Williams were 19th and 20th. But yeah, weird that Shelik would have come back into the pits after only doing an out lap on, or only doing an out/in lap on that set of soft tyres. Not entirely sure what his plan was there. I suppose maybe he's planning on qualifying on the medium tyres rather than the soft tyres, and we're just using the soft tyres instead of the hard tyres to get his eye in a bit. Not sure, but that might explain why he didn't want to actually end up setting a lap time on those tyres if he doesn't want to have to start the race on those soft tyres. And we saw that last time out in Germany, at the very least, it was not a good idea to start the race on the soft tyres. We see Grezju almost getting it entirely wrong there through turn 11, but he actually held on to it pretty nicely. Looked like it was getting pretty leery for him though. But yeah, starting on the soft tyres last time out was not the way to go. It'll be interesting to see whether the drivers think any differently this time out here at the Hungaroring.
Yeah, I think it looks like it's a bit of a strategy thing, because at the moment we've got quite a few people who actually did 2 or 3 laps on that hard set of tyres. Shelik not doing a lap on the soft compound, and actually just 1 competitive time on mediums. So yeah, you might be right. It might be a strategy thing that people want to start on medium tyres if they can. Obviously, we're still probably going to see people at the end switching to softs if they're not in the top 10 anyways, and trying to move up the order. But yeah, it looks like the soft tyre is not really the tyre of choice for qualifying, or rather for the first stint on the race later tonight. So yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting, and some people are going to switch onto softs at the end of qualifying. That's going to be sure. When you're desperate and you're not in top 10 anyways, you might just go for it. But at the same time, if you then end up in P9 or P10, you're really going to hamper your race. So it's a bit of a gamble, but yeah, we'll see who will try.
Yeah, definitely a bit of a gamble, but a gamble at the moment that Amdinator feels like taking in the Williams. Our current provisional pole sitter there, with those red-walled soft tyres on his car coming out of the pit lane. He already set 1 lap on the medium tyres. He was the first and so far only driver to do so. And now he's going to be the first and probably only driver for a little while to set a lap on the soft tyres as well. So just watching him on his out lap at the moment. I'm just going to give Sissant a little bit of airtime here, because I noticed that quite a lot of you guys in the chat, which I can see by the way, so if you have any questions to ask, feel free to do so. A lot of you guys in the chat seem to be supporting Sissant here today. So we'll just give him a little bit of airtime, even though he is basically just having a bit of a free practice session at the moment on these hard tyres. He does go for another lap, interestingly, so he's staying out longer on those hard tyres than the vast majority of the rest of the drivers in his Alfa Romeo. But that probably won't harm him too much. He goes very deep into turn 1 indeed there, so probably going to be an in-lap from him at the end of this one, I suspect.
Yeah, Andy Nater just starting his flying lap on the soft tyres. I was just about to say super softs, but that's not what they call in F1. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if he actually completes that lap. At the moment, he's on provisional pole anyways, so not really any need for him to do so. But maybe just going to try and get a feel for what it's like to drive on the softs, in case he does have to put them on at the end of the session and set a lap time, as he runs a bit wide onto the curb there. But did not spin into the barrier like the Ferrari did earlier.
Yeah, he's taking a few liberties with track limits, cutting one corner here and running wide there. Be surprised if this lap hasn't been invalidated by this point, but he is currently going considerably faster. At least his Sector 1 time was already a quarter of a second up, and now he's 7/10 of a second up on his current provisional pole time is Andernator. So it's looking good for the Williams driver at the moment on these soft tyres to really take another step up in the timing sheets at the moment. Of course, he can't actually go any higher on the sheet, but he can certainly move his lap time down a little bit. So, as he comes around, it looks like he is going to complete the lap. He runs very wide on the exit of the final corner as well, and yet it was not invalidated. He didn't really improve much in that final sector, though, so maybe the soft tyre is just going away from him a little bit in that final sector of the lap. Of course, we saw him making that mistake in the final corner as well, which will not have helped his sector time, but his lap time overall was a solid 7/10 quicker than what he was able to manage on the medium tyres. Bolash Kevin now in the racing point, currently on an outlap on his medium tyres. Iceman, the currently second Alfa Romeo, is out there on his medium tyres as well. Looks like he is not on a push lap though, as he's in 1 ERS mode. I think he might have invalidated this lap somewhere early on because this isn't his outlap, but he is definitely not pushing at all. Kevin pushing quite a lot here. Bolash Kevin on his outlap, getting all over the curbs here. So we'll just stick on board with him and see what our current championship leader, sitting on only 50 points on round 12 of the championship. Of course, the fact that the championship standings were not literally, but almost literally reset with the departure of most of the F3 field to the F2 league a few rounds ago, means that we are basically starting fresh a couple of races ago, and that's why our current championship leader only has 50 points. Bolash Kevin is that man, and here he is into turn 1. Ooh, and that's a big moment for him in the racing point. Surely that will be this lap abandon. He's already down into 0 ERS mode, so yeah, he's not going to be completing this lap at any sort of pace. And that's a bit of a costly error for the Hungarian with only 5 minutes and 40 seconds remaining in this qualifying session.
Yeah, Richie B was on a reasonably fast lap on that set of medium tyres, but had to abandon right at the end, so I'm supposing either A, he was too slow compared to the leader, or he got his lap invalidated as Shelik just started a flying lap. I think Iceman is on one as well. Yeah, he's in the middle sector now, so did he make a mistake again? Yeah, he's out of it, so looks at the similar point on the track, he actually made a mistake and had to abort the lap.
Yeah, it's 2 mistakes now, 2 aborted laps in a row for Iceman, and that will certainly be getting into his head with the clock ticking down here in Budapest for the Hungarian Grand Prix qualifying session. Chad coming around the final corner now in his racing point. Where will he be after he comes across the line? He moves ahead of Bolash Kevin, but only just, and of course that lap time by Bolash Kevin was set on the hard tyres, so that's not necessarily a terribly good lap time for Shad. Expect to see him moving down the order as we see Nuts going into second place in his Ferrari. No one able to quite beat Andernator's time thus far, but he was very, oh no, sorry, it was just a second behind. Sorry, I thought that was 4 thousandths of a second, but it's actually a second and 4 thousandths. Of course, Andernator did set his lap time on the soft tyres, so that would be why.
Yeah, just a few moments until we get into the crucial parts of qualifying. A lot of guys now on the outlaps, a few have already started flying laps, but actually at the moment seems that, yeah, everybody out on track at the moment is on medium tyres except for Shelik, who's in P6 at the moment.
Yeah, Shelik's still going on those hard tyres. He's actually moved himself all the way up into 6th position at the moment, but you've got to expect that he's going to be coming into the pits pretty damn quick to get rid of those hard tyres and strap on a set of mediums, which do seem to be the tyre of choice around here. Here comes Bolash Kevin around the final corner. He hasn't aborted this lap, so he's going to be pushing all the way to the line here in his racing point. Where will this put him? It is into second, but still a considerable margin between him and Andernator, and he's improved on his lap time by around 7/10 of a second. And that's probably not as much of a step improvement as he would like to see, as he has a bit of a moment there on the exit of turn 1 once again, so he's getting nice and out of the way of the rest of the drivers. Schulte's going past there in the Red Bull. But that's perhaps a slightly disappointing lap time for Bolash Kevin. We'll have to wait and see how it pans out. But given that he had to take 2 stabs at it as well and take that extra little bit of life out of his medium tyres, he'll probably not be best pleased with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Race Monster having another go at it. This time coming around the fine corner without having crashed out previously on the lap. He ran out of ERS pretty early there on the run up to the line, and that only puts him in P10 at the moment.
Yeah, not a terribly good lap time for last weekend's pole sitter. And oh no, there's Sissant into the wall as soon as I jump on board with him. He spins on the exit of turn 13 in the traction, and he's lost some of his front wing. There's not going to be enough time for him to get back in the pits, get that change to get back out, I don't believe. So I think that's going to be the end of the qualifying session for the fan favourite Sissant in that Alfa Romeo car. Terrible news for him. Nuts to Nuts has already retired from the session in his Ferrari. He's not going to be starting any higher than 4th, and I'd be very surprised if he starts that highly as well. Hooper currently sitting in 6th in his McLaren. Is he pushing at the moment as he gets toward the end of Sector 1? No, he is in 0 ERS mode. He's probably charging up to take one more stab at it. Who is pushing out there at the moment? Kruzik's probably pushing in the Williams. Yes, and he's already almost a second up on his previous time, if that graphic was not telling me lies. So he's currently sitting on a 117.3. Can he go any better in the Williams on these medium tyres? He'll be hoping for at least a second change from his previous lap time, considering it was set on the hard tyres. Up towards the line he comes, and it's almost a second. 9/10ths of a second up on his previous lap time, and that moves him up into 3rd position. Camille Common, once again showing excellent pace in the Red Bull to be up in 2nd place, and by far the closest driver to Andonator at the moment.
Yeah, Wazza, that is now coming around the last corner. He's currently only in P11. He definitely wants to improve on that. As he doesn't, he was 2 seconds off, so it looks like he did a cool-down lap there. Just having a look. A lot of people doing cool-down laps, or actually already coming into the pits and retiring, as you can see on the bottom of your screen. So I'm just having a look. Yeah, it's not many people on the flying lap at the moment, so a lot of people preparing for the final hunt for pole position here on the last lap. The Andonator actually went out again on those soft compound tires, so he's going to try and defend that pole. It shouldn't be too difficult, but we have Grazio and Jezza on soft tires as well, so it looks like a few people are going to go for it as predicted.
I will jump on board with Grazio after I've finished this lap from Wazza. He's all over the place though, in the middle sector here in his Mercedes, and a big slide on the entry to turn 11 that was, but he actually got it turned in pretty nicely. He's up half a second on his previous lap time, so he's not going to be challenging the very top of the order. Bolash Kevin retires from the session. He's not going to be starting any higher than 4th. That's not particularly good news for our championship leader, as Wazza has a bit of a moment coming out of the second to last corner. Through the final corner he goes in the Mercedes. Where will this put him as he comes up towards the line? Iceman retires from the session, and Wazza actually splits the racing points, moves himself up into 5th. That's a pretty good lap time. And now with Grazio in the Toro Rosso, one of 2 drivers currently out there on the soft tyres. Andonator has already set one lap, and I doubt he'll be setting another one. Here comes Grazio. He's 1.2 seconds up on his previous time, but that's not a particularly impressive previous time, so it doesn't look like he's going to be challenging Andonator at the moment. What can he do in the Toro Rosso? The Polish driver trying to take pole position away. And up to the final corner he comes now. Turned in nicely, picks up the power well over the curb on the exit, but not too badly. And up towards the line, and he invalidated it. It was 1.7 seconds faster, but he's invalidated it somewhere around the lap, and he will not be starting any higher than 14th. That's 2 poor performances in qualifying for Grazio in a row. He'll not be happy with that. Jezza now, the final driver out there on those soft tyres, as Schultes, by the way, has moved himself up into 6th, and no, Jezza's round. He's into the wall. Turn 11 once again. We've seen a lot of drivers being really committed through there, and this time Jezza was just a little bit too committed. Slides into the wall, loses control of his Mercedes, and that will be that for the qualifying session.
Yeah, that was a very anticlimactic end to the qualifying session here. Andonator kept that pole. I think he invalidated his last lap, actually. Or did he improve?
He didn't.
Was he on a 15.8 before?
I think he might have been, actually, yes. I think he might have improved, yeah.
Considering he was on a softer compound tyre, that's not a huge gap he has to 2nd place, but to 3rd. So a very good lap from Camel there. Looks like he's going to be one of the favourites to win the race. I'm going to hazard to guess.
Yeah, he's really blitzed the opposition, Camille, there. He's 5 tenths of a second, half a second faster than anyone else on the medium tyres, and only 2 tenths of a second behind Andinator on the softs. If Andinator had 7 tenths to the guy in second like he does to the guy in third, he'd probably be pretty happy with that qualifying performance. But Camille kind of ruins that for him a little bit. He is currently sitting second in the championship, Andinator, and at the moment only 2 points behind Bolash Kevin in the standings with 48, so it'll be interesting to see what he can do from pole position with Bolash Kevin starting down in, I think he ended up in 4th. Just a quick note, hello to JSR in the chat, sorry you can't join us in the race today. Very kind of you to say that Thompson and myself are the dream F3 duo, very kind of you. And Thompson, do you remember the reference about the ice cream? It says the ice cream is set aside in anticipation.
Yeah, actually, I was waiting for a break to pass you the message, but you read it yourself. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't have any ice cream with me today. I would have some pudding in the fridge. But yeah, good that JSR has the ice cream. He's definitely going to need it.
Yeah, I think it's best if we commentate without our mouths full of ice cream anyway. So it's probably for the best. Anyway, now we are heading out onto the formation lap. There is your pole sitter Andinator, and what a turnaround this has been for Williams in qualifying. First and third on the grid this weekend. Last weekend it was 19th and 20th. A real improvement for these guys, and they'll be feeling a lot better about their starting positions in this race. Interestingly enough, hold on, that can't be correct. I'm showing soft tyres on Kruzix and Camille. Is that correct? Are you seeing that as well?
Nope.
Okay, my screen is telling me soft tyres on everyone in the top 10, which cannot be correct.
Yeah, that's not correct. So Andinator's on softs, and everybody else in the top 10 is on mediums. Actually, most of the field is, except for Shelik, Greju, and Reipson, who are on hard tyres.
Okay, and are they the only 3 drivers on hards?
Yes.
Okay, so Race Monster, Richie
they're the only 3 drivers with hard on.
Nice, excellent. I'm very glad. Thank you very much for that one. So Race Monster, Richie B, and Jezza are all on the medium tyres, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, in that case, it is only Andinator that is on the soft tyres. Everyone else that you're seeing, showing as being on the soft tyres, they're actually on the medium tyres. So make sure to try and process that in your brains as you're watching. Sorry about this slight graphical error here. It's very peculiar because it does show Sissant on the medium tyres, but literally no one else. Very peculiar.
Interesting.
Yeah, very, very strange. Now, they are getting around the final corner here. It's pretty interesting that only 3 of the drivers starting outside of the top 10 opted for the hard option. The rest went for the mediums. And I've just had a little bit of information there, you might be able to see it in the bottom right hand of the screen, that there are around 15 minutes until the heavens open here in Hungary. So we are going to have some rain before the end of this race, you can rest assured of that. Here we are now then, on the grid at the Hungaroring. Here come the lights, 5 lights on already. Drive-through penalty for a jump shot for Sisson, but they're underway now, and it looks like Andinator's got a pretty clean start out there at the front already. Camille jumping in behind him to try and get the toe down towards turn 1. Will he make a dive bomb up the inside of the Williams driver? No, he does not, and it's still a Williams 1 and 3 with a Red Bull in between the middle of that sandwich at the moment. Bolash Kevin was very tight up on the inside of the first corner there, and he's really under pressure from Waza, who's had a great start in the Mercedes, and he is up ahead of the Hungarian driver in his home race. So good stuff from Waza to move up ahead there. Schultes and Shad battling down in 6th, and there's a driver way off the road at the back there as well. It's Greju, and Greju's gone into the wall. He's retired from the session, and no, who was that? That was Shad. Shad also into the wall there in the second racing point. He has recovered, but he's taken some pretty significant damage to his front wing.
Yeah, Schultes also lost out a bit there, being sandwiched between 2 cars. Sissant with a great start, up in P8 already, starting from P13, so he was a big benefactor of everything that was going on. Was that Red Bull? Was that Schultes going a bit off track there? Looks like he kept it together, but he definitely kicked up a bit of dust there. A bit of a messy start there for the bottom half of the top 10. Obviously, the top 3 holding on to their positions, and gonna say it's just a matter of time until Camel catches up to Andinator, because Andinator's tyres are going to die off pretty quickly.
Yeah, and by the way, one thing to note for all of his fans in chat, Sissant up 5 positions from where he started, as we see Schultes and Nutzenuts going side by side, and it is Schultes that holds the position for now, but Nutzenuts going for the switchback there. Sissant has the best view in the house for this one, and Schultes actually runs a little bit wide on the exit, compromises his traction, and Nutzenuts holds on to the position for now, up in 6th in the Ferrari. But it seems like it's only a matter of time before Schultes will be able to get past him. He really does seem to have the pace on him so far there. He really was able to make a move into turn 1 without DRS already. But Sisson, what a start from him. And it's looking like actually Schultes all over the road here. Sisson might have a little bit of an opportunity to try and make it past the Red Bull driver up ahead as well. No, he's just going to have to tuck in behind him before turn 6 and 7, the chicane there. And Sisson holding in 8th position for now. But what a start it has been for the Alfa Romeo driver. Same story for Jezza behind in the Mercedes. He is also up exactly 5 positions from where he started.
Yeah, good start from those two guys. Unfortunately, I've just noticed I have a bit of a timing bug, but I'll try to commentate without that.
I should note that as I was just praising Sisson's start, I have just remembered that actually he got a jump start, and I even said it out loud myself. So of course, Sisson did have a jump start, so that's a big caveat to put onto the fact that he is up 5 positions from where he started. So let's praise Jezza's start instead. A much more impressive start from the Mercedes, not having to cheat to move up 5 positions from where he started.
Yeah, Camel already setting the fastest lap of the race now, and you can see Andonators really put under pressure, and his teammate Krusix there sitting in P3, maybe trying to benefit of anything that happens in front of him there, but it looks like Camel's not. Ooh, that was Andonator really far out on turn 4 there. Yeah, but Camel's going to push now and try to get past Andonator as quickly as he can, and then try to pull out a gap to the cars behind.
Yeah, Krusix still sticking pretty close behind these guys as well. Andonator on the soft tyres not able to pull a gap to the cars behind, which is pretty bad news for him. Soft tyres probably already losing out to the medium tyres at this point in the race. For those who aren't aware, the vast majority of the drivers that are shown as being on soft tyres at the moment are in fact on medium tyres. It is only Andonator who actually started the race on the soft tyres. Camille behind him is on the mediums, and he is right behind him right now in the Red Bull. Very, very close behind our current race leader indeed, and it looks like it's only a matter of time before Camille will be able to make the move. Will he be able to make it into turn 1 on this lap? DRS will be available for him for the first time here as he heads now onto the back straight, and the main straight I should say, and Andonator already all over the curbing there, really losing out in the traction zone, and Camille's past him without even so much as a mention from Andonator. Nothing he could do about that one after he made that mistake on the exit of turn 14. So Camille really has first place absolutely gifted to him there.
Yeah, Andonator nearly dropped it into the wall on the right there after half spinning on the curb. I'm just trying to think, was that a Force India 2 years ago who crashed at that point? Can't quite remember, but it happens to real life drivers too, so good job from Andinator to hold on there as this. Krusix getting a huge amount of oversteer in the dirty air behind his teammate, and I don't know how well those two.
Oh, he's all over the road again. Wow.
Really all over the place. I think he's really heating up his tires on that dirty air now. But yeah, considering how slow Andinator is at the moment, I don't know how well they play as a team. But if Krusix gets a bit closer, Andinator might let him pass. It would make sense in a team strategy situation like this.
Yeah, you never know how closely teammates work together here in AOR. Some work very closely together, others hardly work together at all. And at the moment, Andinator has been the first driver here to pick up a 3-second time penalty as well for too many warnings. So that's not good news for Andinator. It was promising after he started on pole, but that is something bad for him. And obviously he is lacking pace at the moment on those soft tyres compared to the medium tyres that almost the entirety of the rest of the field are currently running. By the way, very good memory. It was Sergio Perez in 2015, I believe, who crashed there, as you mentioned. And Race Monster looks like he's had a bit of an incident as well. He has DNF from the race. I'll try and stick on board with Shad, see if we can find the cause of Race Monster's DNF, whether he crashed or whether he just came into the pits and retired the car. But here we go now around the final corner. Will we see a Ferrari over on the right-hand side? No, we don't. So it looks like Race Monster just went into the pits to retire the car. That is his second DNF in as many races. Not a good mid-season at the moment for the Ferrari driver.
Yeah, definitely not. Andinator still being chased down by his teammate there, as both of them run wide there, and that's allowed Wazza to actually catch up to the two of them, and Balash is actually behind those guys as well. So and another lockup, and Krusik's nearly running into the back of his teammate there, and yeah, Andinator should be nice and let Krusik's pass then, and then maybe try and hold up the rest. Because he's really a sitting duck there at the moment.
Yeah, here comes Kruzix, and it looks pretty much like a wave by for the Williams team. Kruzix already way up the inside, way ahead of Andinator, and not much Andinator could do about it. Meanwhile, it looks like Wazza and Bolash Kevin are trying to battle behind as well. Bolash Kevin really close behind the Mercedes driver, tries to lunge it in towards turn 2 there, and actually just about gets it. Oh no! Wazza went very deep, he locked up into turn 2, and then on the exit towards turn 3 he was just about able to hang on to it, but a little bit of tyre to side pod contact between Bolash Kevin and Wazza there. They were getting pretty close for comfort, but it all turned out okay in the end for these two drivers. Meanwhile, it looks like Ripson and Jezza also going side by side up towards turn 5, but it's Jezza that gets the better of the McLaren driver, and it's the Mercedes that claims P10 and at the moment the final point scoring position.
Yeah, that was actually quite close there between Wazza and Racing Point. I think there was actually a bit of contact on the outside there. So lucky that no one got damaged as far as I can tell so far. But yeah, that's not going to be the end of it. Then again, Andinator get to the way, Wazza having to avoid, and that's the Racing Point nearly through there. So yeah, again, yellow flags at the moment. I can't see what that was for. But it looks like DRS is still enabled, and Wazza now going to get past Andinator here, and maybe he's going to drop 2 positions as well as Bolash goes deep. Wazza goes deep as well, locks up, and now again those 2 guys are side by side, but it looks like Wazza's just going to hold on to P3 there at the moment, and Andinator really needs to come into the pits fairly soon, because those tyres look to be absolutely shot at this point of the race.
Yeah, Bolash Kevin wasting no time in getting past the Williams driver. As soon as Wazza was through, Bolash Kevin knew he had to follow him through to make sure the sort of gap didn't build up between him and the Mercedes driver that has built up already between Wazza and Kruzix and Camille up ahead. That is what being stuck behind the slower car on the soft tyres does to you. It just puts you so far behind the rest of your competitors if you can't pass them quickly, and Nuts is finding that out to his cost at the moment. Will he be able to take Andinator through the twisty S section? It's very unlikely, but he has so much more grip at the moment than the Williams driver. Look how close he is to the back of him there. Had to get out of the throttle just to avoid crashing into the back of the Williams driver, and Andinator really does need to come into the pits soon. He is all over the place. He's probably trying to hold on to wait for the rain to come, because of course the rain will be coming. The Andinator is going to have to concede defeat and head into the pits at the end of lap 7.
Yeah, and actually I saw the Ferrari received a bit of damage there. He lost his left end plate there on the front wing, and that's definitely going to hamper him, especially once the rain hits, because then you're going to need the downforce even more. So he might be in for a front wing change at some point. Has Bolash having a look around the outside of Wazza there, but not really overtaking opportunity for him there, and he sorts back into P4.
It shows his intentions, though, really trying to go around the outside of turn 2. Good luck with that. If you can pull it off, that is absolutely masterful. Bolash Kevin not able to do it on this lap, but at his home Grand Prix, he wants to make it 3 wins in 3. But at the moment, with Camille Common, who was his main challenger for the win last time out in Germany, with already about a 6.5 second gap between himself and the race leader, the Polish driver in the Red Bull, Bolash Kevin will be desperate to get past Wazza as soon as he possibly can and get into free air so he can start closing down Kruzix, and then Camille himself.
And just a quick note, after Andinator has now pitted on lap 8, he is in P14 starting from P1. So those soft tyres were definitely not worth it.
Mm-hmm. And is it correct that he has pitted onto another set of the soft tyres?
Let me have a look. It says softs for me again, yeah. Okay. I'm just going to check the race director as well, just to confirm. Yeah, he is on soft tyres, yeah.
Yeah, it does definitely make sense, because if the rain is coming sooner rather than later, it would make sense to be on the fastest tyre, just have another quick stint on those soft tyres, try and do some damage limitation from down there in 14th position at the moment. Next question is, though, whether these guys on the medium tyres are going to be able to make their tyres last long enough that they're not going to have to come into the pits before the rain comes down. And there it is. There's the first drop of rain. I've just seen it hit the camera lens. The rain is now coming down, and it looks like it's coming down pretty quickly here. So these guys are in luck. They are going to be able to just pit straight from the mediums onto the intermediate tyres. I'm almost sure of it.
Yeah. And, yeah. Not really worth the for Animated there. He did start from pole, but you lost so much time, and now we literally just switched into tyres as now it's starting to rain. You can see from drivers having trouble now going through the corner, so it looks like it's getting greasy fairly quickly on the track there. So it might just do 2 or 3 laps on those soft tyres and then get rid of them again. So yeah, everybody who started on the mediums obviously better strategy, and it looks like we're going to have to switch to inters fairly shortly, because it looks like the rain is coming down pretty quickly at the moment. It's not always the case on F1 2019. Sometimes it really takes a while, but at the moment it's really spitting down on track there.
Yeah, it's rare to see such a quick transition, I think, between the very first couple of raindrops and then really significant rain that we're seeing right here on the moment. The driver's still not afraid to drive on the curbs at the moment, though, on their slick tyres, so they're showing that it's not too slippery out there at the moment. DRS, of course, still enabled at this point. Well, Kevin has not been able to pass Wazza on this lap, and every lap that he sticks behind the Mercedes driver, he is losing more and more time to the first and second position drivers, Camille and Kruzix. Meanwhile, behind them, Schultes, Hooper and Iceman are all queuing up behind Nuts to Nuts at the moment in the Ferrari, who's had a bit of a drop-off in pace since losing that part of his front wing, of course, on the back of the Williams of Andernator, and Schultes was already holding up Hooper and Iceman pretty significantly, but now they're all being held up by the Ferrari further ahead.
And just having a look at Camille's lap time. So this first lap of rain has already slowed them down by 2 seconds. So at this rate, in 2 to 3 laps time, it's definitely going to be time for inters.
Yeah, and that should be okay for everyone who is currently on the medium tyres, as almost everyone in the field is currently on those medium tyres. Andernator on his softs, but he's already pitted. And then a couple of guys who started the race on the hard tyres, Shelik and Rips, and Shad retiring from the session. He was a long way at the back of the field in the second racing point, but that's a shame for him after a strong showing last time out to take third position in the German Grand Prix. He'll have been hoping for better than a DNF around here, but after his major incident on the first lap that involved the loss of his front wing and him having to come into the pits at the end of the first lap, it was never going to be a good race for the Frenchman.
Yeah, it looks like it was somewhere in Sector 3 where he retired. Looks like it was the where was it? There was a yellow flag in turn 10, I think that was. But I couldn't see a car anywhere there, so not quite sure what happened there. But I'm gonna guess he got caught out by the conditions, and Camel is the first driver to come in, as he has a huge slide on the pit entry there. So yeah, actually it was a lap quicker than I predicted, the change to inters, and it looks like everybody's going to come in now.
Yeah, it does seem like it's a pretty unanimous decision from the drivers to all head into the pits here. An interesting enough, it's telling me he's on the hard tyres. That's almost certainly not true. I'm sure he'll be on those intermediate tyres. Wazza being shown on the intermediate tyres, Kruzix the same. Unless Camille has had a problem with selecting the intermediate tyres, he should be on those hard tyres. It will soon be apparent by his pace and the way he's driving. And oh no, he is on the hard tyres, and you can see that he's just driven into the wall on purpose. He's thrown the race away by failing to select the intermediate tyres or having a bug. Either way, it's resulted on him being put onto slick tyres after he came into the pits when he wanted the intermediates, and in frustration he has thrown it into the wall. Only a yellow flag in Sector 1 at the moment, no virtual safety car or safety car, thank goodness. But that was a moment of pure frustration for the Red Bull driver, who seemed to have this race pretty much sewn up after the first stint. He was so far ahead. Sisson's round, he stayed out on the medium tyres. Looks like he stayed out 1 lap too long on those slick tyres, and he could not handle it. He was moving up, further up the field, of course, by not going into the pits, but he is the only driver still out there on the slick tyres, and he has paid the price for it. It's been a messy race for the Alfa Romeo driver this time around, with of course his jump start and the 5-second stop-go penalty. He had a result as a result of that, or in fact it was a drive-through penalty, I believe, that you get for that now. And Donator with his second 3-second time penalty of the race, and of course this has very ill-suited the Williams driver, who has had to come back into the pits for the second time and is currently sitting outside of the points and in 11th after starting the race on pole position.
Yeah, he thought it was not that bad, and decided to not stack behind Iceman there. But considering how quickly it got wet on track, I think that was the wrong decision, and you can see how much he has been caught out by that, and now he's pulling off to the sides. I'm gonna guess he's gonna. Looks like he just let people pass, but I think he might actually retire now. Considering how slow he's going, and he's losing a whole lot of time, and he's just going to be in the middle of nowhere. He's already at the end of the field, and he still has to pit. So, yeah, that's definitely Sisson's race over right there.
Yeah, even if he doesn't retire from the session, he may as well do, because there is no recovering from that unless he gets a full safety car and stays on the same lap as the rest of the drivers, which he should be able to do. So he can just drive around and pray for that safety car. But it's not going to get any better than that for the Alfa Romeo driver, I'm afraid. And in fact, he decides he does not want to brave it out. He retires from the session. And Nuts has retired from the session as well. That's almost certainly a crash. Yes, it is. There he is. He's spun off to the right between turns 3 and turn 4. And I'm not entirely sure what would have caused that so late on. Maybe he was side by side with another driver and had an incident with the other driver. I can't be sure. It's very late on the straight, though, if he just lost it on traction coming out of turn 3. But I suppose it's possible.
Yeah, it looks like with the rain came the chaos. We're now down to 11 drivers starting from 17. So a lot of drivers getting caught out by the conditions here. And yeah, it's going to be a fight to get to the end. We're not even close to the halfway point, really. There's still 4 laps to go until there. So yeah, definitely a lot of drivers struggling at the moment with the conditions. So I'm gonna guess a lot of them are gonna hope that the conditions improve soon enough.
And a good point raised in chat there by JSR, the fact that some of these drivers will probably have run wet setups in qualifying and the opening stint of the race, and they will be receiving the dividends from that decision at this point. And perhaps Wazza is one of them, because last time out he was the fastest driver on the grid by quite a margin. He gained about a second on Kruzix, who is currently in the lead at the moment. He was 7 seconds ahead of the Mercedes driver. That's dropped to 5.8. And he's actually building the gap to Bolash Kevin behind in the racing point at the moment. So really good stuff from Wazza. All of a sudden, he looks like the guy with all the pace out there.
Yeah, definitely. It looks like the conditions are suiting him really well. And it's always interesting to see how pace between drivers can shift when the conditions change. And it looks like at the moment it's definitely favoring Wazza.
At the moment, Schultes and Hooper are the only 2 drivers who are close to each other in the field at the moment. Shelik is 1.1 seconds behind Richie B, but these are the only 2 drivers who are within 1 second of one another. Of course, that doesn't matter so much now when there's no DRS available in the wet conditions, but Schultes has been wide on every corner I've seen him so far. Really struggling to keep that Red Bull on track, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's picking up a warning or 2 for that as well, as he, very nearly spins it on the exit of turn 13 there in towards turn 14. Just needs to be very patient. You need to be so patient around here, especially in the wet. You always feel like you just want to get on the throttle that little bit sooner than you're able to, and in the wet that will only be amplified. The Schultes not looking close enough to make a move on Hooper right now, but these guys will be the most likely to be battling on track anytime soon.
Yeah, it looks like everybody is just trying to settle in into a rhythm at the moment, get a feel for the conditions. The worst thing you want to do is try and be aggressive during a condition change. So usually when conditions change, you see the drivers being a bit less aggressive, just getting a feel of where the grip is, how much grip there is. And then once they have a feel for that, then you can see how drivers again get more aggressive and try and make a move on our other drivers. But yeah, at the moment it looks like Scholz is just trying to get into a rhythm, not lose touch to Hooper, and then once he's comfortable, maybe attack. Because at the moment you can see he's losing the back end here and there quite a bit, especially onto the curbs. So he'll have to work on that if he really wants to make a mark here.
Interestingly, Shelik is closing down Richie B pretty quickly at the moment towards the back end of the field. Currently in 11th and last position is the Turkish driver in the Haas, but the Dutchman up ahead in the Toro Rosso is slower than Shelik is able to go at the moment, and he'll be hoping that he can pull alongside the Toro Rosso and pass it sooner rather than later. Bit disappointed, I'd imagine, with 11th position on the grid will Shelik be, but perhaps he was one of those drivers who did elect to run a wet setup in the qualifying session, and that might be why we're seeing him close down Richie B so quickly, taking such a tight line through the final corner. That cannot be the quickest way to do that. Very interesting line indeed from the Turk, and actually, yeah, he loses out all the way down the straight as a result of it. Lost about 0.3 of a second to Richie B up ahead by taking the corner like that, so perhaps it wasn't the right decision, but at least it looked very stable. He certainly didn't look like he was going to spin off at any point when he was running that line, but yeah, a bit of a strange one there from Shelik.
Yeah, it looked like a safe line, but definitely not the quickest line, so you'll have to work on that. Again, conditions are changing, so you're out on track trying to find what the best line is, considering the conditions, and then once you find that groove, you're just going to run with it. But yeah, Richie B there in P10, up 4 positions. I know him fairly well from the F2 leagues I race in. He does a bit better there, but I guess this still is the F1 leagues, and it's a bit more difficult to get good results. But he's sitting on a point at the moment, so yeah, it doesn't look too threatened from behind at the moment. Even though Shelik is holding up with him, he's not really close enough to be a danger for Richie B.
Sitting on a point sounds terribly painful, by the way, but Richie B up 4 positions from where he started on the grid. 14th is where he qualified, and he's now up into 10th. So that's a pretty good performance so far. Of course, he is still second last in the race, and he will have gained those positions primarily from other drivers DNFing from the race up ahead of him. But nevertheless, he's had to keep it on the island and on track to make sure that he did not join the fated drivers at the bottom of the field at the moment. 6 drivers already having DNF'd from the session. Greju was the first to go. Race Monster followed. Shad, after a poor opening lap in which he found himself in the wall, had to pit at the end of the opening lap, and it all went wrong for him from there. Also retired from the session. Camille, we saw, tried to get into the pits to strap on a set of the intermediate tyres, but for one reason or another, whether it was his own mistake or the game's, he ended up on a set of hard tyres instead, and in his frustration slammed it into the wall on the exit of turn 1. Sissant, after his jump start, it all went wrong for him. Briefly, hold on 1 second here, as I appear to have accidentally tried to open somebody's profile. We'll get you back into the race as soon as possible. My apologies for that one. Yep, sorry, tried to jump on board with Sissant, but of course he's not in the race, so of course I couldn't do that. Not really sure what I was trying to do there. And Nutst, the Ferrari driver, is the final retiree from this race thus far. We saw him in the wall somewhere between turn 3 and turn 4. Weird incident for him. I'd be surprised if that happened without some kind of contact with another driver, but I didn't catch it. Didn't see if he was next to any driver on track at that point in time. Bolash Kevin closing down Wazza at the moment, getting closer to the Mercedes driver, and it looks like Wazza had the pace initially after they came out of the pits. He was the one who was able to find the pace quickest, but once they've been able to settle into this groove, it looks like it's the Hungarian behind who is starting to close down the Mercedes.
Yeah, and as we're at the halfway point of the race now, I was just having a bit of the weather at the moment. It seemed in the final corner, getting some blue skies again, and the rain was definitely lighter there. So it looks like conditions might swing back to dry weather. Although I might be mistaken, but that's at least what it looks like in the final corner at the moment. And yeah, Krusix doing a good job there in P1, holding the gap there to Wazza. And Krusix, after his first race last time round, and he finished P17. So actually that win would be his first points in this league.
Yeah, absolutely. And qualifying on third, it always looked promising for the Williams driver. And of course, while his teammate was on pole, Krusix qualified critically on the medium tyres rather than the softs, and as a result didn't have to make an extra pit stop in this race, which Antoneta did. He gambled on the rain coming sooner than it did, and as a result he has paid the price, currently sitting down in 9th position in that Williams. Seeing some drivers closing the gaps on other drivers. Ripson getting close behind Jezza. Looks like earlier on in the race, I didn't manage to mention it, but Ripson seemed to have an incident in which he lost the position to Jezza in the opening sector of the lap. But now he will be hoping to finally regain that position as he closes in on the Mercedes up ahead. Two drivers closing in on Mercedes. Bolash Kevin doing so up towards the front, closing in on second position, and Ripson closing in on 7th. And Shelik very close behind Richie B at the moment as well.
Yeah, it looks like Wazza's starting to struggle now. He's dropping time to Crew 6 behind, and he's getting under pressure more and more from behind, from the racing point. So I don't know. Maybe he's going through his tires too quickly. Had a bit too many slides, and as I say that, Bolash has a huge moment of oversteer there behind the Mercedes in front. But he holds onto it. Incredibly enough, he only lost like 2/10 doing that, because that was a massive slide right there.
Yeah, no, it's crazy what you can get away with in the rain sometimes. Anything that would lose you so much time in the dry, in the rain, it just doesn't seem to have that much of an impact, as all the other drivers are struggling as well. Bolash Kevin still within a second of Wazza at the moment. He won't be able to think about making a move at the end of the pit straight here, but he is closing down the Mercedes driver up ahead little by little, and he will be hoping that soon enough he'll be able to get close enough. But it looks like these drivers at the moment are really struggling to close up to the driver ahead of them. Struggling with the dirty air, and of course that is only amplified in the wet conditions. So if it dries out, expect to see the field bunching back up again. But at the moment it is Shelik that's closest of anyone. Actually, Ripson's getting very close behind Jezza, but actually he's run out of straight heading into turn 1, and as a result has not been able to make a move on the Mercedes up ahead. Bit of a moment there for Ripson, but he held it nicely. Nice, cool, calm and collected in the cockpit there. But that was probably a little bit of a heart-in-mouth moment nevertheless.
Yeah, and it looks like skies have become darker again, so doesn't seem like there's any change of conditions in sight at the moment. It's raining fairly heavily, fairly for quite an amount of time now. So yeah, it doesn't really seem like any change at the moment. So drivers will have to cope, and as you said, it looks like you can get to about 5 to 8 tenths behind another driver, and then with the dirty air, you really struggle for grip in these wet conditions. So it looks like drivers are struggling to maybe get past the drivers in front, and as I say that, Shelik is closer to Richie B than he has ever been, but he's in the middle sector, and that's not really an overtaking opportunity, so he'll have to try and hang on to the back of that Toro Rosso to overtake on the main straight.
Indeed he will. Another driver getting close to another driver is Schultes. Closed back up to Hooper up ahead of him. Hooper with a solid drive last time out. Went unremarked, but he finished 9th in the German Grand Prix. Currently sitting up in 4th, which is a much better position, of course. Much more points available for coming 4th than for coming 9th, to state the obvious. And Hooper will be hoping that he can net some of those points for the McLaren team. Ripson, the other McLaren driver, currently sitting down in 8th position as well. Both of the McLaren drivers still in the race, which is promising for them, if nothing else. Both Ferrari drivers already out of the race, so they're not going to be scoring points anytime soon. Ripson pretty close behind Jezza, closer than anyone has been so far, but up towards turn 4, he's going to be very brave to follow him at any sort of pace through there, and you can just see the Mercedes getting away from him once again, as the McLaren has to settle back down behind him to get into the tight and twisty middle sector of the lap now. Through the chicane they come. You can see them riding over the curbs there, and you can see how much more curb the McLaren and the Williams of Andonator took compared to the Mercedes of Jezza, who was really abiding by track limits a lot more than Ripson and Andonator are behind him.
And a thing we haven't talked about yet is actually whether they can make it to the end of the race on this set of intermediate tyres, because they put them on at the end of lap 11, I think. So that would mean 24 laps on those inters, and I'm not quite sure they can actually go that distance. So depending on how tight they are on tyre wear, might see everybody, or maybe only a few people switching onto a strategy where they have to pit again for a new set of inters.
Yeah, I expect to see the majority of the drivers, if not all of the drivers, having to pit again for another set of intermediate tyres. I don't think they can last to the end of the race on this set of tyres, but miracles do happen, and we'll see if some drivers decide to risk it, as Bolash Kevin is right behind Wazza right now, up towards the chicane. Will he stick one up the inside? No, he doesn't. Wazza riding all over the curbs there, and you can see how wayward he's getting in that Mercedes. Bolash Kevin struggling with some oversteer moments of his own, but nothing compared to what Wazza is having to deal with up ahead at the moment. So we'll stick on board with Bolash Kevin for now, as it seems like the gaps are closing down throughout the field. Ripson and Shelik both close to their respective drivers, leading the way at the moment for those guys. But it is Bolash Kevin who looks most likely to make a move for second place at the moment, and you can see how much Wazza is struggling. He's dropped about 2 seconds from Kruzix since I last looked. He's down to about 8 seconds between them now, and Bolash Kevin takes the initiative and dives into the pits.
Yeah, that's a very smart move there, in my opinion. Because as we've just discussed, they're probably going to all have to make a stop anyways. And now that it's so close behind Wazza, and Wazza's really struggling, he has to be fast on this new set of intermediate tyres. There's no other way. And I think he has a very, very, very good chance of jumping ahead of the Mercedes. So yeah, Wazza has a lot of work cut up for him here on this lap number 23 to try and stay ahead of Bolash Kevin there.
Little fake move there from Ripson sends Jezza a little bit wide as he feels the need to defend from the McLaren driver behind him. It's starting to heat up in the battle for what is now 6th position after Iceman has come into the pits as well in the Alfa Romeo. He comes out at the back of the field, but all the rest of the drivers will have to pit as well, so he'll regain some of his positions once they have done so. Jezza having a few lag issues up ahead of Ripson at the moment. That's going to make the McLaren driver nervous as he looks at the back of the Mercedes driver, occasionally jolting around there. But nevertheless, he'll be hoping that he can dispatch Jezza all the more quickly, therefore. But up towards Sector 2 now, and it looks like he's not been able to do it on this lap. He'll have to probably sit and wait for next lap unless Jezza makes some kind of major mistake here in the S section of the track. And it doesn't look like he's going to do so, so Ripson frustrated once again. You can see Andonator also getting close behind these two now, looking to join the fray as Kruzix and Wazza both jumping into the pits to protect against the attempted undercut from Bolash Kevin. Schultes also into the pits. It's Hooper that continues. He's going to be the leader of this race in the McLaren for a little while at least.
Yeah, Bolash Kevin now coming around the last corner. Where's Wazza? He's finished his pit stop, or he's got to go down the whole of the pit lane, and he's now exiting. There's Bolash Kevin coming down the pit straight, and he's actually going to get past the Mercedes there. That's Wazza down behind the racing point there, and yeah, down into what is effectively P3 now, as Kruzix obviously still in the lead there, and yeah, undercut work there for Bolash, and yeah, good strategy from him. Looks like Ripson Andinator has already stopped, sorry. Oh no, he stopped earlier because of his soft tyre, so those two guys still have to stop. Salters came out behind them after his stop, and Richie B and Shelik, who are still battling it out, they also still have to stop for a new set of inters.
Yeah, Jezza, by the way, has come out of the pits on the full wet tyres. He was struggling quite a lot on those intermediates with Ripson all over his case, but I don't think it called for full wet tyres, and I think Jezza will probably live to regret that decision. Schultes will be hoping that Andonator and Ripson head into the pits at the end of this lap, because he is trying to undercut Hooper up ahead. But if Hooper comes into the pits, it's unlikely his teammate Ripson is going to do so, and as a result of that, Schultes' plans to undercut our current race leader might be scuppered here in the battle for what will become 4th position once Hooper has come into the pits. And there he is in the pits, in the McLaren. I'll stick on board with Schultes, see where Hooper comes out relative to the one remaining Polish driver in the one remaining Red Bull in this race.
Yeah, Jezza is sliding around all over the place, by the way.
It's full wets for Hooper. Is that actual full wets for Hooper?
Yeah, it looks like full wets for Hooper as well, but considering how Jezza's doing on those full wets, that's not the right choice at the moment. Might be a bit early. It's coming down fairly heavily at the moment, but I think it's still too early. And actually, Andonator and Ripson still staying out, and I think that's what they're betting on, for it to get even more wet and then go onto the full wets once it's the optimal range for them.
It could have another twist in the tail. Could the Hungarian Grand Prix here in the Apex Online Racing Hype Energy F3 League. Round 12 here at the Hungarian Grand Prix, and it looks like the race is far from over, with 2 drivers currently sitting out there on the full wet tyres. Have they made the right decision? Have they had a masterstroke? Or has it all gone wrong for them? We'll have to wait and see. Hooper really keeping close to the back of Schultes up ahead, who was, by the way, able to undercut the McLaren driver, of course. But will it all be in vain if he has to come back into the pits for a set of full wets at any point? I can only assume that they know from their radio communications that the rain is going to keep getting heavier and going to keep lashing it down as we're seeing it do right now. And if that keeps happening, it may well reach full wet conditions. So, Hooper and Jezza are definitely hoping for that to happen, but Jezza is losing bundles of time at the back of the field at the moment compared to Iceman. Hooper not losing anywhere near as much time, but he is still losing time to Schultes, Andernator and Ripson up ahead, and Andernator and Ripson stay out another lap. They are definitely hoping to see that crossover period sometime soon so they can jump into the pits on their intermediate tyres and make one fewer pit stop than everyone else. Andernator would very much appreciate that, considering he's already had to make one more pit stop than the rest of the field. So that could really save his race. But at the moment it's still Kruzik leading the way, and it looks like that isn't something which is going to be threatened anytime soon. Blash Kevin 7.8 seconds behind him, but critically ahead of Waz.
Yeah, and looking at Hooper's time compared to the guys in front of him, obviously Salt is getting held up by the slower 2 drivers in front, but yeah, compared to that group, Hooper's losing about a second a lap, so it's not far off the turnover point. But at the moment, it seems like the Inters are still the faster of the 2 compounds.
Yeah, and actually Jezza is losing more than that per lap to Iceman than what Hooper is losing to Schultes. So I think that just shows you that if there are some drivers who are just able to make it work on the full wets when it's maybe not quite full wet conditions better than certain other drivers are able to do so, and Hooper seems to have that skill set in his arsenal, and that is really helping him out at the moment as he tries desperately not to lose too much time so that he can leapfrog as many of the drivers as possible if and when they have to come into the pits a 3rd or 4th time, depending on the driver. Or no, 2nd or 3rd time, I should say, depending on the driver, for another set of full wet tyres. But Hooper has thrown in the towel. He's decided it's not going to change after all, and he's coming back into the pits. He's given in on those wet tyres, and that will be the intermediate tyres, surely, that Hooper is going to go onto here. And that is bad news indeed for him, and terrible news for Jezza as well.
As Jezza stays out at the moment, so he's still hoping for the rain to just get a tiny bit heavier, so his wet switch on. But I think, considering how early he went onto those, I think he's already cooked them. And usually then there's no way of coming back from that. But at the moment, even though Andernator and Ripson are on very old Inters, they're still holding on to their positions, so it looks like they've taken care of their tyres fairly well, and Salter's really having difficulties getting past the 2 cars in front of him.
Yeah, and this is really scuppering the rest of Schultes' race. He's not going to be able to hope for anything better than 4th position once Ripson and Andernator come into the pits. Of course, there's the ever so slight possibility that these 2 drivers are going to try and go to the end on the intermediate tyres if it doesn't switch over to full wet conditions, as it looks like it's not going to do. Shelik getting past Jezza at the very back of the field, claiming the final point scoring position in the Haas, as Jezza is struggling so much on those full wet tyres. And Hooper, it was such a risk for the McLaren driver. He was running up in 4th before coming into the pits for those full wet tyres, and he took the risk, and it did not pay off for him. And, you know, maybe it just would have been better to do what all the rest of the drivers were doing when he was in such a solid point scoring position up until that point. Meanwhile, Schultes close behind Andernator once again, but it's just going to be frustration for the Red Bull driver unless he can do something about it, and it doesn't look particularly like he's going to be able to do anything about it anytime soon. Through turn 2, you can see he's basically pushing Andernator through the corner. Jezza also throws in the towel on those wet tyres. He's going for the intermediates instead, and it was a gamble that was probably worth doing if you're Jezza, probably not worth doing if you're Hooper, and it has paid both of them back very, very poorly indeed. Oh no, that's Schultes almost into the wall, but he keeps it out. Just about in the Red Bull. Wow. That was good stuff to hold that one. That was a major moment for the Polish driver, but he kept it out of the wall entirely, I do believe. I think his front wing is entirely intact, so good stuff from him to prevent what could have been a bit of a catastrophe.
Yeah, great car control from the Red Bull driver there. I mean, seeing as a race monster dropped it into the wall there in qualifying in the dry, yeah, it's a very good effort there from Scholtes to hold on to that, because that was really massive, and he did not have a lot of time and space to react to that, and he kept it out of the wall. So good stuff from him there.
Andonator and Ripson are staying out. They're short at this point. They've got to be thinking about going to the end, right? They're on lap 29 of 35. If they thought they were going to have to pit again, surely they would have given up and gone on to the intermediates by now. It's clearly not going to get to full wet conditions. The rain has abated significantly from what we saw around that last pit stop window when most of the drivers in the field went into the pits. So Rips and Andonator, and of course Richie B is also staying out on those 17 lap old intermediate tyres, so he's trying to do the same thing as the guys up in 4th and 5th up ahead of him are doing as well. Richie B gained a couple of positions from staying out, and he'll be hoping that he can hold on to it, but Iceman will be bearing down on him on much fresher intermediate tyres. But we've seen that you can defend from a guy on the fresher intermediate tyres, as Scholtes has not really been able to make much of an imprint at all on Andonator and Ripson up ahead.
Yeah, it's quite remarkable if you compare Ripson's times to Wazza ahead, who's on Inters that have the same age as the ones on Scholtes' cars. And in theory, the Red Bull should be able to lap 1.5 seconds quicker, but that still doesn't seem to be quick enough to get past the two guys in front, which must be terribly frustrating considering there's only 6 laps to go now. So he has to make a move fairly soon, or just hope that Andonator and Ripson are absolutely going to lose their tires towards the end of the race.
Scholtes pretty close behind. They're all very close to each other, these three drivers. But are any of them going to think about making a move into turn 1? Andonator certainly not, and Scholtes not going to be able to make the move either. They're so tantalizingly close, but they can't quite make it. And I tell you what, at this point, I am terrified for Andonator, Ripson and Richie B. They must be walking on eggshells out there on the track at the moment, desperately trying to keep their intermediate tyres alive. 18 laps now on those intermediate tyres, and Andonator with a major moment on the exit of turn 3, but he holds it nicely, and Scholtes isn't close enough to think about making a move. Andonator hardly lost any time at all there, but that could have been absolutely disastrous for the Williams driver. He held it very well though. But yeah, as I said, these guys must be really, really nervous now that these tyres are going to go pop anytime soon.
Yeah, Andonator's trouble actually started a couple of 100 meters earlier there from as he went very wide onto the right side, and yeah, that nearly opened the door for Scholtes behind. He managed to keep it together and close the door again, but that compromised his line for that right-hand kink, which is flat out in the dry conditions, but obviously not in these wet conditions. And he got onto the curb while he was trying to put down the power, and it nearly caught him out.
Yeah, he almost ran into the back of Ripson. You feel, even though him and Ripson are both on similarly aged intermediate tyres, you feel that Andonator really has the pace over the McLaren driver at the moment, if only he could get past him. But the fact that Ripson is there and giving Andonator a tow down every single straight is probably what's holding up Scholtes so much as well. He might be able to think about making a move on one of these drivers if he caught them alone, but strength in numbers for the guys on the 19-lap-old intermediate tyres means that Scholtes is just having to sit frustrated in 6th position at the moment, waiting, hoping that their tyres are going to go bang. But that's pretty much all he can hope for at this point. It's very unlikely that they're going to come into the pits before the end of this race now. Bolash Kevin hasn't been able to make much of an imprint on Kruzik's up ahead. It looks like, barring any sort of major mistake, the Williams driver is set to take the win here in the Hungarian Grand Prix. He just has to hold on to it for another 4.5 laps. Bolash Kevin in 2nd position at the moment in the Racing Point. The hometown hero here in Budapest. 7 seconds away from the race lead, but comfortably ahead of Wazza at the moment, though he hasn't been able to drop the Mercedes driver, which is interesting considering we really thought that he had the pace on Wazza in the previous stint on the intermediate tyres, but Wazza really isn't losing much time to him at all. Ripson in 4th position at the moment in the McLaren. holding on desperately to those intermediate tyres. Same can be said for Andonator behind in the Williams as he runs wide through turn 13. Will Schultes think about sticking his nose out the inside? No, he doesn't. 6th position at the moment for the Polish driver in the Red Bull as Hooper picks up a 3-second time penalty down in 9th position. Shelik is within 3 seconds of him. And Andonator, wow, nearly into the wall once again. We saw it in the same place. That was the same place in Sergio Perez's pace that you mentioned earlier. But Andonator holds on to it and Schultes isn't close enough once again. Somehow, every time Andonator makes a major mistake, Schultes seems to do a similar mistake, even if a little bit smaller. But it just means that Schultes isn't close enough at any point to capitalize on the errors that the Williams driver is making up ahead.
Yeah, and ironically enough, yesterday in the stream, I said to not drive too aggressively, but at this point, I'm going to say Schultes should drive more aggressively. Not last time around where Andonator lost it, but the lap before actually was very close to the Williams, and considering how much fresher his tyres are, I would have just gone for it in turn 1, because he's running out of time. He really has to make his move now, because at the moment, they've done 20 laps on these tyres. Andonator's struggling a bit, but overall, it doesn't seem like they're going to gift Schultes the position due to making errors. So he has to make his mark on his own and now really try and get past those guys because, yeah, as I've said, he's running out of time.
Indeed. One thing we shouldn't forget, Andonator has a significant amount of time penalties in this race. I believe at least 6 seconds for the Williams driver, and if I'm not mistaken, Schultes has at least 3 seconds as well. I'm not sure about the status of Ripson. Could I ask you to quickly check the time penalties for the drivers in the field at the moment and see if there's anyone that we need to know about? Meanwhile, though, Schultes still close behind Andonator, but still not close enough. Nowhere near close enough into turn 1 as it happens. He's got so much charge left in his battery, but the same can be said for all the drivers, because you really don't use that much battery charge in the wet conditions. So that's not really going to be so much of a factor in these battles as it would usually be in a normal dry conditions race. Schultes using the curb on the inside of turn 2. He's done that the last lap, and he's done that this lap as well. It seems to be something he's regularly doing in that Red Bull, and I would not be doing it myself. That looked incredibly slippery to me. But he's not having any issues by using it. He definitely wants to avoid the curb on the inside of this one, turn 5. That will really spit you out even in the dry conditions, so I can't imagine how much of a nightmare it'll be in the wet. You can run pretty much as whatever line you want. You can run over as many of the curbs in the chicane as you want. Turn 6 and 7 hardly exist for some of the drivers this weekend. But yeah, in general, some curbs, you just sort of learn which ones you need to avoid and which ones you don't. And the one at turn 5 is absolutely one you need to avoid. And oh no, Schultes! Wow, how has he held that? That was within a hair's breadth of hitting the wall on the left-hand side, but he held it. Unbelievable. He lost no time in doing it as well. Wow, it was astounding from Schultes.
Yeah, I'm going to say a bit lucky as well, because that would have, in 9 out of 10 cases, he would have lost at least half of his wing there. Yeah, but I just had a look at the penalties as, again, Schultes messes up his opportunity to get past the Williams in front. Yeah, Andonator has 6 seconds and Schultes has 3 at the moment. So, yeah, as I said, doesn't really look like Schultes is going to finish any higher up than 5th. Even if he gets past those 2 guys, I don't think he's going to pull out 3 seconds. Considering we only have 2 laps to go. Krusix, by the way, also has 3 seconds of worth of penalties, but at the moment he's 8 seconds ahead, so not really in danger of losing his leader, as Wazza now gets a 3-second time penalty. So yeah, it's going to be difficult for Wazza to get a P2 tonight.
Yeah, even if he does pass Bolash Kevin, he's going to have to hope that Bolash Kevin has some sort of major incident which moves him more than 3 seconds behind the Mercedes driver. Of course, Wazza doesn't have to worry about his podium slot. He's pretty much nailed on for that now, with 16.8 seconds between him and Ripson on those 22-lap-old intermediate tyres. And it does look like they're going to go to the end of the race. Andonator with a bit of a wiggle through turn 13. But once again, every time Andonator has a moment, Schultes has a moment in sympathy behind. So close behind him at the moment, though. Heading down towards the final sector of the lap. Into turn 13. Look, he's so close. He could just tap the back. He could reach out and hold on to the rear wing of that Williams if he wanted to. And right now, through turn 14, the final corner of the track. That is where he needs to be close, and he's just not quite close enough. Ripson is building a gap on Andinator. He doesn't have to worry about it too much, though. Andinator weaving down the straight, trying to break the toe to Schultes. You can tell that means that he is starting to get a bit nervous about the Red Bull driver behind. He runs deep into turn 1. Will Schultes be able to get the better traction down towards turn 2? Not quite, but he's so close behind. Surely he's got to think about making a move on this lap. He might know that Andinator has more penalties than him, and there's contact between them as Andinator drifts wide through turn 2. Schultes tried to get the switch back, but it was not to be. He's going to try and switch back once again through turn 3 here, but he actually has to run onto the grass and sensibly backs out of it, because that he could have thrown it all away there. Ripson driving away from these guys now. Looks like he's going to be okay, but this battle is set to rage on until the finish line despite the penalties. Schultes once again in opposite lock through turn 5 there, but he does hold on to it. No problem for him. We've seen him hold on to far worse so far in this race, and he's bumping the back of Andinator all the way through the middle sector here, just tapping him repeatedly on the back, reminding him that he's there. Meanwhile, Richie B's actually getting closer to these drivers, so if he doesn't have any penalties, he's going to inherit a position from Andinator, who's all over the show right now, but it's Kruzix that takes the race win in the sister Williams car. What a drive from him, dominant in the end, 8.6 seconds back to Balázs Kevin, the Hungarian driver, and Schultes and Andinator, they have passed him. Schultes has got past Andinator, finally giving up the ghost in that battle, and it is Schultes that moves past him. Ripson in 4th. Wazza's come across the line to take the final podium position. Ripson, what a drive from him to hold on to those 23, 24 lap old intermediate tyres. Schultes comes across the line, Andinator as well. Will Richie B inherit the position away from the Williams driver? Yes, he does. He did very well to hold on to those 24 lap old intermediates as well. Iceman comes home a respectable 8th position in the Alfa Romeo. Hooper 9th, and Shelik will round out the point scorers here in the Haas.
Yeah, really good job from Ripson, Richie B and Andinator there to hold on to those intermediate tyres. That was quite of a strategy there. And it looks like, especially for Ripson, it really paid off there with P4 in the end for the McLaren driver. Great job.
Yeah, great stuff, really. The McLarens, it looked like it was going to be Hooper that was challenging for P4 and Ripson was going to have to battle for P8. As it happened, it was Ripson that got P4 and Hooper down there in P9 instead. So they really kind of swapped positions after Hooper made that mistake going on to the full wet tyres when it was not the right call to do so. It did not pay him well. It paid Jezza even worse, who ended up 30 plus seconds off the back of the field and in the only finishing position not to score a point. But here they are then on the podium. There is Kruzix taking the victory for the Williams team. Great stuff from him, the German driver, on the top step of the podium. Balázs Kevin finally doesn't win a race here in his 3rd race in F3. It would have been 3 wins in 3 if he was able to do so, but he wasn't able to do so, and he has to settle for 2nd position at his home Grand Prix. And there is the Mercedes of Wazza coming home in 3rd and taking the bottom step of the podium.
Yeah, quite a few penalties actually being given in this race. But yeah, it was very difficult conditions, so obviously very difficult to keep it between the white lines. And apart from Jezza, everybody who managed to actually finish the race gained some points today, so that was really the main goal. Weather caught out quite a few guys, not only from the conditions but also from the strategy, and overall a very interesting race we saw tonight.
Yeah, very interesting, especially with those guys, those 3 drivers, Ripson, Richie B and Andinator, doing such a good job to stay out on those intermediate tyres for as long as they did. Impressive stuff that they were able to make it work, and Ripson especially got a great result out of it in the end. It all went wrong for Andinator as a result of his penalties, and he finally lost out in his pretty much, well, not quite race-long, but half of the race-long battle with Schultes. Schultes, well, that would be pretty cathartic for him, the fact that he was able to get past a Williams driver. He would have passed him on penalties anyway, but I think he'd prefer to do it on track as he did. So, are we going to see if we can get some guys in the interview box here today? No one jumping into the ready for interview at the moment, so it doesn't look like we are going to be able to have any interviews for you today. But thank you very much, Thompson, for joining me. I hope you enjoyed your time here commentating on the round 12 of the AOR Hype Energy F3 League. I certainly did. It was a very interesting race here at the Hungaroring, and passing was difficult, but it wasn't impossible, and it didn't lack battles. We saw a lot of very tense battling between the drivers, and a lot of excellent recoveries and really major moments from a lot of the drivers, almost into the wall multiple times, the likes of Schultes. So it was good stuff to see from them. Any final comments there, Thompson?
Yeah, definitely an interesting race, mostly due to the condition and the different strategies that have been driven. Yeah, it was a great pleasure to commentate with you as always, and obviously want to thank everybody who was watching tonight, especially JSR. I hope you put the ice cream to good use, and with that's my final words, and yeah, I'll let you finish for the night.
Alright, well thank you very, very much for joining me, and thank all of you guys for joining me as well. I have been Jacob Hancox, this has been Thompson alongside me, and we have been commentating on the AOR Hype Energy F3 League. Goodbye.